Hi and welcome to another QwikTouchPro video. In this video we're going to be adding some new features to the kiosk we created in our previous video series on using QwikTouchPro and Keystroke to create a kiosk. And one of the templates we created in that video series was this sales screen where customers can come up and filter our inventory items by department and then add them to their transaction. And what we're going to do in this video then is create a new template where customers are going to be able to actually type in a search term to look for inventory items instead of just by department. So let's go ahead and get started by creating a new template. And I'm going to create this just like we did in the video series, and that's explained in there. So we're just going to call it 10.80 by 1920. We're going to want to show this window mode. We're going to lock the width, set 100% the height. We're going to right justify it and say OK. And let's go ahead and save this as kiosk. Let's call this one inventory lookup. Inventory lookup. Okay. Set the background color on that from transparent to white before I forget, and we'll save that again. And at the top of the screen, let's go back to our sales screen. I'm going to put a little banner header just like we did on this screen. So I'm going to, with Control key, I'm going to select both of those, choose copy, come back in here and paste this up at the top. To get that at the top, yep. And we'll rename this. Instead of add items, this could be inventory lookup, or maybe just search is something a little more user-friendly. Let the customer know what they can do on this screen. And let's scroll out. And what we're going to have on this template is we want a big scrolling list of all of our inventory items. And then at the bottom, we'll put a keyboard, a little keypad where the customer can type in some value to be able to filter down that list. So let's go ahead and do the keypad down at the bottom next. And let's start with a border. I want keep the border thickness, no radius. I want it to be square. And we'll just have this be like it's kind of a little container for all of this down at the bottom. So let's stretch that out and hold down the shift key and the down arrow key. I'm just going to move that all the way to the bottom. And I think that's bigger than I'm going to want it, but we'll just start there. Let's change the color on that. And to do that, I'm going to drag this color palette custom control that we created in a previous video. And I want the background color on this one to be, let's do light gray. All right. So next thing we're going to do, we want a box where the user can type in, or where the customer can type something in. So we're going to drag a border onto the canvas. And let's set the radius to 0 to make it square. And I'm going to zoom in and pan around. And let's just stretch this over. And this is where as the customer's typing in, they're going to be able to see their text in this box. And we're going to put a couple buttons next to that. We want to be able to backspace and clear this box. So let's just add that really quick while we're here. We'll do a border and a plain text. Line those up, group them. Again, no border radius. We'll just make them square. And this first one's going to say, I think, back. And we'll copy and paste that. And this one can say clear. And they will, whoops, I want both of those. Select both of those, drag them down here. Looks like we can make this box a little smaller. Oops, a little smaller. All right, let's change the background color of the back button to be, I don't know, I suppose dark gray is fine. And change the font color white so we can see it. Change the background color of the clear button to be red. Oops, not border, and then we want font color to be white. All right, so next thing we need, this is just a border, there's no text on here, and we want to provide a text control that the user can see what they're typing in. So we're going to add a plain text to this, and I'm just going to line it up here, hold down Control to move it over one. Let's left justify this label, zoom in a little bit here, and pan down. So with it left justified, we're going to leave just a little room on the left for a margin there. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and the right arrow key. And we're going to size this over. And same thing, I'll just leave a little room on the right. And we're going to delete the text on that. It's going to start off empty. And I'm also going to rename this. So let's call this TXT search term maybe. All right. So next thing we're going to do, we need a little keypad that the user can type into to enter text into this box. So let's start with a new key. I'm going to copy the back key. And we'll just come down here and let's zoom in again, pan down. Let's start with the Q key since that's the first key on the home row of my keyboard. Move this up into place. And when we touch this button, we want to change the text, this TXT search term. We want to update that text to whatever they typed in. So let's just go into double click the Q button. And so when we click this button, we want to change the text. So we'll go to text, change text. We're going to change the text of txt search term, and we want it to be the letter Q in this case. But a shortcut here, instead of typing the letter Q in, we can come down here, let's delete that. We can come here and select this control text, which uses the text of this control. So now we're going to send the letter Q because that's what the text is on this control. And we also want to append text. If they hit the letter Q several times, we want to put Q, Q, Q. We just want it like they're typing into the box. So let's hit add and close, and let's just preview this template and type the letter Q, and we can see that our search box starts to type in with the letter we've typed in. So we're good shape there. Let's go back in. Let's do the back button and the clear button next. So if I double click the back button, we're going to come up under here under text. We're going to change text, and it's actually, I'm sorry, it's not change text. We have another option here called delete last character, which is what we want to do with this backspace button. So when we touch this button, we're going to delete the last character of the txt search term box and hit add, close. Let's do clear. We'll say text. When we click this button, we want to change the text of txt search term to be just nothing. So we'll just leave that blank and hit add, close. Let's preview that. Just make sure that's working. If we had a bunch of Qs, we should be able to backspace over them now. And if we have more and we hit clear, they should all go away. So let's close that, go back into QwikTouchPro. So let's go back into our Q button. So we're hard coding this button essentially to say when we type the letter Q or whatever text is on this control, we want to update this txt search term text field. And that's actually probably the right solution in this template. But for a training video, we're going to show you another way you can go about this. If we wanted this keyboard to be more reusable, for example, we don't only want it to work with the txt search term, we'd want to be able to use this in more places. So what we can do instead of, let's go into change text edit, and instead of sending this to this text txt search term text box, we can say we want to modify the text of the active text control. And then we're going to hit update and close. And next thing we need to do is we need to set this txt search term to be our active text control, and we're going to do that through template load. So template macros edit, and when this template loads, we're going to go down to text, set active text, and we're going to set the active text to be search term, and hit add and close. And let's just save that and preview that and see what that looks like. So now when we hit Q, we're updating the active text, but we've set this to be our active text. So it updates the box, so everything's working just like it did before. And again, in our video, this really doesn't matter. We're only using this keyboard in one spot, so we could have hard-coded this to the search term box. But for kind of future-proofing this or more usability, we're just going to use the active text control. And another thing we could do on that then, if we had another box on this screen that we wanted to be able to type in, say maybe we wanted them to be able to select a department field to search by that instead, we could have a button on here. All we have to do then is change the active text control, and this keyboard will start sending those keys to that new text. So again, it doesn't really matter much on this template, but there are places where that can be pretty handy. So what's next? We've got our Q key. Let's go ahead and finish building out our keyboard. And if I copy and paste the Q key and change the text to W, and preview the template, we should see that the Q and the W both work. Because again, we're sending whatever text is on this control, that's what we're updating our active text control with. So we don't have to do any additional setup or macros on these keys. We just need to change the text. So I'm going to Control C to copy that. If we go under Home, under Paste, there's this little flyout here for Paste Special. And if we hit the Paste Special button, you can read the box here, but this is for every item I put on this list, we'll create a key. So I want let's put our caps lock on, and I want an E, comma, R, put all of our keys, and if I hit OK, we're going to end up creating all of the buttons on our top row of our key, or top row of our keyboard. And if we preview that, just make sure, no matter what button we touch, we're getting the right value in the box. So super quick and easy to create these keypads that way. And let's copy our Q key and paste it down. And this is going to be the letter A. We'll go just to the next row on our keyboard. And I'm going to hit Control C again because I want to copy the A key, and then Control Alt V for special paste or paste special. And this is now the next row. Hit OK. Oops, and I didn't get that copied, so we're going to move that up. And let's go down again, copy our A key down here again, and this one's going to be the letter Z. And I think if I click off that back onto it, Control C to copy, and then Control Alt V, ZX, all our letters on. That looks good. And I think I want a number row across the top here. So let's, I want to select all these and move them down. And this big gray box is kind of in the way. I can't lasso select. So this is where freezing a control comes in handy again. So I'm going to highlight that box, Control F to freeze. And now I can select all of these controls and move them down. And let's make copy the Q key up, and we'll just make this the number 1. Let's do maybe a background of white on this one with the font color of the dark gray, so we can have it stand out from the letters. Okay, and then I'm going to copy, Control Alt V for paste special, 2, 3, 4 through the letters. Okay. And again, if we preview our template, we should see now that even the numbers work just like the letters. So our entire keyboard is now built out and it's working. Let's go back into QwikTouchPro. Let's align this keyboard a little bit. I want to line this row up with these rows. And to do that, I'm going to select this row, all these keys, and I'm going to hit Control-G to group. I'm going to select all the keys in this row and group them, select all the keys in this row and group them, and then selecting this first row, which is centered, or where I want to center off of, hold down Control, select the next two rows, under Layout, and Align Centers. And now I can come in here and ungroup all of those, and select the whole keyboard now. I'm going to group the whole keyboard because, again, when I'm moving, all these controls are precisely laid out, and when I'm moving them around, I don't want them like playing with the grid snap and kind of adjusting themselves. So I'm going to just hit Control-G to group the whole thing and get our keyboard lined up. And actually, let's thaw out our border, and let's center it all off of that. So with the border selected, holding down Control on our keyboard, I can go under Centers again, and I had actually had it centered, so cool. Next thing we're going to want here before we get to our inventory list, I want a button on this template that's going to let us get back to our previous template, back to the sales screen. And I've created a button similar to that on our review order template. So I'm just going to open that up, come down here and grab this back button and choose copy. And we'll come in here, back to our inventory lookup screen, and we'll just paste this in here. And we're just going to put this down in the bottom. That's probably just not a bad spot for it right there. Lower that font size to get them to match up a little better, maybe. What size are these fonts? This is 29, so if we made this 29, they should be the same size. All right, and when we click the back button, let's go to the macros on that. We're going to show template sales screen. Again, I copied this over from the other template, so it actually already does what we want. When we hit the back button, we just want to go back to our sales screen. So let's, we don't need to preview that and test it. We'll just assume that's going to work. So the next thing we'll do, let's do our inventory list here, which is going to be just what we did on the sales screen. We're going to have a big scrolling list of all of our inventory items. So let's create, we're going to do this just like we did in a previous video. We're going to start off by creating an item template to represent each one of these inventory items. And before we do that, we need to know how big to make them. And my little lazy way of doing that is to just kind of mock this up in QwikTouchPro. I want, let's say, 4 buttons wide and maybe 4 buttons tall. And we can start there. Let's see how that looks. So we're going to lay out our button. We're going to select all these and group them, move them up. And then I'm just going to nudge and tweak this over into position. And you can see because they're grouped, they all resize together, keeping their proportions. Zoom out a little bit. And there we go at the bottom. So let's preview our template now. And so that's what our inventory item would look like. We're going to have 16 items. That looks like a pretty good layout, so I'm happy with that. So let's go back into QwikTouchPro. And let's ungroup these. And again, this is just kind of a little template to help us lay all this out so we can delete all of these now. And we just want to know how big to make this inventory item template is kind of what we're getting at with all of that. And we can now see that we want an item template that's 2.7 by, it looks like 3.1 maybe. So let's copy this, new template. We're going to call this 2.7 by 3.1. Right click in here and paste and put a little size control in here and just make sure that fits. Okay. What else can we do? Let's set the border radius to 0. And let's drag our custom control color palette picker back on here again. And I want to set the border radius on this to be, or border color to be this dark gray. All right. So next thing we want, so this is going to be another inventory item key. So we're going to show things on here like the description, the long description, the price, something like that. And we've already set that up under our inventory item template. So I'm just going to open that up. I'm just going to copy these 3 fields from here back into my other template. And just paste those in, move them over. And again, just being lazy here, I don't want to go through and wire all these back up, and I've already done the work. So let's see, select ballpoint pen. Let's make that a little smaller. This key's not quite as wide as the previous key, so we're just going to resize some of this stuff. I don't know that I need the price this big. Let's maybe make the price a little smaller. And move it down to the bottom. Oops, move it down to the bottom. Let's change this font color to green. Again, just kind of styling out what we've got here. I just want to make it look a little different than the previous screen. It's probably good. Description didn't need to be that big, so we can move that down. Let's move ballpoint pen down. And let's maybe put one more label up here at the top. Let's put maybe the department up in the upper right-hand corner of this key. So this would say something like food, maybe. Let's turn caps lock off, food. Set that to the dark gray. And now we can size that font to something else. We'll right justify that maybe, move it in a little bit. All right, and we're going to bind that to our department. So that's under our keystroke inventory export, which is what we have selected. We're looking for department. List here somewhere. Where are we at? There we go. Department, apply. So let's go ahead and save this. And let's call this I. Just follow our naming convention. And this is going to be inventory item lookup item template, I guess. Gets a little wordy, but item template. Save. We're probably done with our color picker, so let's get rid of that and save that again. And let's go back into our inventory lookup screen. All right, so we are now ready to create our data view. So let's delete our little placeholder item there and grab a data view, drop it onto the canvas. We're going to browse out to our keystroke inventory export, which we set up in a previous video, so we didn't have to set it up here. And we're going to browse out to the item, which is I inventory lookup item template. Same thing, we're going to make this scroll vertically instead of horizontally. And let's just pop it on the canvas, see where we're at. If I hold down the shift key and the right arrow, as this list gets bigger, we'll see our items will all pop in. We've got our 4 items across. And if we scroll down to the bottom here, we can drag this down a little bit. All right, so let's preview our template. And there we go. We have a scrolling list of all of our inventory items on this inventory lookup screen. So the next thing we're going to do is when we start typing in this box, we want to filter this inventory item list down to whatever it is they search for. And we're going to start with description. So if they type in chocolate, they would see all of the items with the description that say chocolate, for example. So let's go back into QwikTouchPro. Back in here. I'm going to go back into our I inventory lookup. This is a little close to the bottom. I'm just going to move that up and save that again. All right, and let's go back to our inventory lookup screen. So we're now to the next part. We're down to where we want to actually filter this list as we type into the box. And the way we're going to do that is if we come down here to our text search term, instead of coming in, and we did this on a previous video, let's ungroup our keyboard. Instead of coming into each one of these keys and saying after we change that text, now go filter this item, we're actually going to respond to the text changing on the search term box. So we're going to open txt search term. When the text on this changes, which could happen from any of these buttons getting clicked or any of these buttons getting clicked, when the text changes, we want to filter this list. And I forgot to rename that, so let's go back in and make this DV inventory lookup so we can recognize it when we see it. And then we'll go back in and we're going under, not under there, we're going to go under our, back into our txt search term box and say when this text changes, we're going to change this from click to text change. So when the text in this box changes, we're going to filter this inventory or this list, which is data view set row filter. And it's going to be the inventory lookup. That's what we want to filter. And we're going to start off with, what do we have here? Let's cancel that. Did I cancel? Close. Okay. I actually need to save this template after renaming this data view. So I'm going to get it save on that. And now we're going to go into txt search term. When the text changes, data view, data view, set row filter, and we set the row filter of inventory lookup, and the value we want to filter off of, we're going to start with description, which means as we type in this box, we're going to filter by the description, and instead of equals, we're going to make this a like search. And if you hold the mouse over to like, you're going to see that it says use % for wildcard. So just to look at this really quick, if we did BUD, for example, for Budweiser maybe, if we search for this description like Bud, description is going to have to actually match that 3-letter description exactly. So you're only going to find the description BUD exactly. If we put a % at the end of that, now we'll see any words that start with BUD and end with anything. So Budweiser would now get caught in this search. And if we went to the beginning of this and put a %, now if the letters BUD appear anywhere in the description, we'll have a match. So let's just say, and actually I guess instead of we don't want to search for the word Bud, we want to search for whatever's in this text box. So let's delete that and say we want to go for text. We could do active text control because this is the active text control, but I'm just going to call it txt search term. Say OK, hit add. So when the text changes in this box, let's hit add again. We're going to set a row filter on our inventory lookup, and we're going to filter it by description is like whatever we typed in the box. And I forgot to put the %. We need to go back into this and actually need to remove that and re-add it. I should have had these little % at the end because again we want a like search here. So let's hit add and update. And sorry about that. And I did it wrong again. It's not number, it's description we want. So let's remove the other one. Is this right now? There we go. Add. Get rid of the one I didn't want. Update again. Let's check this now. So when this text changes, we're going to set the row filter of inventory lookup to be the description like whatever we type in the box. So let's just go test that out. Hit save, preview. And if we type in maybe, let's do bud. And as we type in the letters, we're going to see that the list starts to filter down, and we're going to see only items that have the word bud in them. If we clear this, we go back to all of our items. If we were to type in maybe like king, we're going to see that we get the Kingston jump drive because king shows up in the description. Let's get clear on that. So maybe next thing we want to do on this, let's also be able to search through the extended description and maybe even the department. So let's go back into QwikTouchPro. We're going to go back in when this text changes. So let's highlight the existing macro and hit edit. And we've got our filter on here that says if the description is like whatever they typed in the box. And let's come in and make, I'm going to hit L a few times to get down to long description. There we go. So if long description is like whatever they typed in the search term box, text, txt search term, and we need to put our percent signs at the beginning and the end. And instead of and, we're going to make it as an or search and hit add. So now when they type in this box, if the description is like what they typed in or the long description is what they typed in, and let's add one more for maybe, let's do department, and same thing. Department's like, we just left all those values in there. So if the department is like the search term box, and we're still on or, so we'll hit add and update and close and save and preview. And now if we type in this box, so let's do king again. Now when we search for king, we get our Kingston jump drive just like we did before. We also get Budweiser because it's the king of beers, now shows up in the long description. Stephen King shows up down here because he's in the long description. We search for king. If we clear that, we could search for numbers here. If we search for 2008, or we could backspace over that. That's, we want 2007. So again, we can just search through all these boxes. Let's clear that. We can also search through the department. So if we wanted all of the liquor items, LIQ, we can filter down to all the liquor. Same thing, food. Oops, I spelled food wrong. I sure did. Food. And there's all the items in our food department. So next thing we're going to do is when we touch one of these items, we want to add whatever we touched to our keystroke inventory. So let's go to clerk into keystroke while we're here. And go back into QwikTouchPro. And we did this on the sales screen already. So we'll just go in here and do it again. On this sales screen, when we touch one of these items, we add it to the inventory. So we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to right click on this, choose macro editor. When the selection changes on this lookup field, which means they touched one of these buttons, we're going to active program, send text. We're going to send the stock number of the item they clicked, and we'll get that from the data view, inventory lookup, stock number, top item on the list. So add, we're going to send the stock number, and then active program, send code. We're going to send a return. Return is on here, add. And the last thing I want to do is when they add an item, I just want to take them back to the sales screen instead of leaving them on this lookup screen. And again, you can leave them on this lookup screen and let them use the done button. For this video, let's just go to QwikTouchPro, show template, and let's browse out to sales screen. Hit add. Not going to customize that. Let's hit save and preview this and see how we're doing. So let's search for maybe an 11-inch writing tablet and add it to our inventory item. There we go. And once we've added the item, we go back to our sales screen, which is defaulted to our promotional items, where we start bringing those up again. Looks like next thing we need to do is we want to put a little button on here where we can go now look up that, or open up that lookup template from this screen. So let's exit that, back to QwikTouchPro. Zoom out. I'm going to grab this blue button, copy that, and go into our sales screen. And down on the lower left, let's just paste this back in. And instead of the word back, I'm going to use a wingding for this. I think if I use the letter L and look at one of our wingding fonts, there we go. Webdings has a magnifying glass for the letter L, which for inventory lookup makes sense, so we'll use that. I'm going to resize that, square it up a little bit, and just move it down into position. And then I want to resize these other two buttons to get them out of the way. And again, an easy way to do that, I can select both of them, group them, and resize them as a unit now, and just use the nudge and tweak keys. And I think my button here is not lined up. So there we go. So now I can just line up the cancel button and resize it with the nudge and tweak keys. So let's ungroup that. And all we're going to do now is when we double click this button, we're going to go to QwikTouchPro, show templates, and we're going to show that inventory lookup screen we just created. Hit add. Not going to customize that. And we got the old, because I copied this macro from, or copied this key from another template, it already had a macro on it. So let's delete the old one. We don't want to show the sales screen. We want to show inventory lookup. And let's just save that, preview that. Now when we hit our inventory lookup, we go to our inventory lookup screen where we can type in values. We can go back to our sales screen. We should be able to come back into it again. It resets add our inventory items. Again, let's add a writing tablet or whatever. And I think that's going to be it for this video. And as always, thanks for watching.